Well, good morning. My name is Lazarus, and the story is true. Let me begin by wishing everyone a happy Easter. Thank you all for inviting me to be here today to speak on Resurrection Sunday, on something I happen to know a little bit about, resurrection. But Jesus, I mean, really, it's all about Jesus. Jesus, man, I got to tell you, he was a great friend to me and to my two sisters, Mary and Martha. They are an important part of my story. It's funny how some things you remember, some things you don't. For instance, I still remember the first time I heard the sweetest voice. Fill the jars with water. Man, that was awesome. Fill the jars with water. See, my two sisters and I were going to a wedding. We went up to Cana in Galilee, and we left our home in Bethany, which is down by Jerusalem, to go to the wedding of a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends. And it was late in the wedding feast, and it was like the party had been going for a while, and they ran out of wine. So I got ready to leave, like you do, right? My sister Martha, she's over with this group of servants, and she's helping them get ready to do the cleanup. You got to understand something about my sister Martha. She always keeps busy, tending to every detail. That's just who she is. That's who she is. And so she's over here tending to every detail. So I go to get her. And when I do, there's this woman walking up, bringing this young man. I later found out that this young man is Jesus. And this woman who's bringing him over to this group of servants, and all of us standing there, is his mother. And she brings him over, and she says, they have no more wine. And this Jesus, he says, that's not our problem. And then he says something we didn't really understand at the time, something like, my time has not yet come. We were all like, we don't know what that means, we don't understand that. But his mom, ignoring everything that he says, turns to all of us, turns to these servants especially standing there and says, do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you. So Jesus tells them, take these 6 stone jars. They have like 30 gallons each. Go fill them up with water and bring them back. And I'm thinking, this cleanup is about to get into full swing. Martha, let's go. Come on. Let's get out of here. No more wine. Cleanup's going to start, right? Then Jesus tells these servants, dip out some and take it to the master of the ceremonies. Dip some out of these jars that you just filled with water. Take it to the master of ceremonies. And the servants followed his instructions. So I had to see what's going to happen next, right? I'm like, wow, let's see. This is going to be crazy. Taking water to the master of ceremonies. So when the master of ceremonies tasted this water, which was now wine, it was crazy. He called over my buddy, the groom, and he says, man, a host serves the best wine first. And then when everyone has had a lot to drink, he brings out the less expensive wine. But you've kept the best until now. And then this huge cheer goes up, right? Hooray! 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 I mean, people could have heard it if they were out on the edge, not allowed to come to the party. They could have heard the party. And instead of ending, the party just got started. You see, that's how it is when you meet Jesus. It's like the party's just getting started. It really is. But all this was going on. I was enthralled with this Jesus. I mean, I was captivated. And my sisters, Mary and Martha, also just captivated by this Jesus, this man who turned water into wine. We talked to him and his disciples for a while. We found out they were going to be heading down to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. So we invited them to stay at our house in Bethany. It's right up the road from Jerusalem. And so they said, yeah, we'll do that. And from then on, whenever Jesus would come that way, he would stay with us. He would stay at our house in Bethany's. And those were such great visits. Mary and I, we used to sit at Jesus' feet, listening to him teach, just hanging on every word with the rest of his disciples, while Martha, I got to tell you, she would cook these huge meals for everybody. Now, this one time she got a little upset because she was doing all the cooking and cleaning, but she got over it. Jesus talked to her. She got over it. And not to brag or anything, But Jesus and I, we were buddies. We became really close. We would go fishing. Every time they would come to visit, we would go fishing, which was normal for Jesus and his disciples, because they were fishermen. They would go out fishing all the time. So when they came to visit us, of course we went fishing. And this was pretty awesome to go fishing with Jesus, because when you go fishing with Jesus, when you realize who He is, you always catch fish. A lot of fish. There's this one time, I have to tell you, we were there with Jesus and some of the disciples who were fishermen were fishing. And they've been fishing all night. This is early in the morning, way earlier than this. Jesus walks up to the shore and He says, "Hey guys, go out to the little bit deeper water and cast your nets on the other side again." And they said, Peter and those guys, "Jesus, we're tired. We're exhausted. Man, we've been fishing all night long. We haven't caught anything. These waters are fished out. But because you tell us to, do whatever He tells you. Because you tell us to, we'll do it." And they go out a little bit and they throw the net. And there's so many fish they can't even bring them in the boat. They have to call their buddies, "Come get another boat. Bring another boat." They have 2 boats and 1 net and they're pulling in all these fish. It was awesome. That's how it was with Jesus. Miraculous. Whenever Jesus showed up, miracles would happen. So, I got sick. No one knows what the sickness was. So no one could offer any remedy or any cure. And it hit me hard. It hit me fast. My sisters, Mary and Martha, they tried to get word to Jesus that I was sick. But some of the people around Jerusalem, they were trying to arrest Jesus. And so Jesus and His disciples were a couple of days away. They were over on the other side of the Jordan River. And for a while, for me, everything went all fuzzy. Everything was spinning and spinning and spinning. And then there was this kind of a haze. Does that make any sense? And then darkness. It was so cold. And the last thing I heard was the crying of my 2 sisters, weeping, and their voices saying, "If only Jesus were here. If only Jesus were here." It's funny, I felt peace. I mean, the whole thing should have really upset me, dying and everything. It was cold in the darkness, but there was something else. There was peace. And I remember thinking, for what I thought I was sure was the last time, this phrase which had become so popular among those of us who follow Jesus, it goes like this: "Rejoice in the Lord always." Again I say, rejoice. Don't be anxious about anything, but with thanksgiving present your requests to God, and the peace of God which transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Oh, you've heard of that? Yeah, it's great, isn't it? The real question is, though, do you know that kind of peace? Do you know that peace? Well, there I am, the cold, the darkness, and then silence. What is that sound? I hear something that sounds like, "Lazarus, come out!" Warmth washed over my body. Darkness remained, but I stood up and ouch! Those needles began attacking my feet and then went through my whole body. You know what I'm talking about? Like when your foot falls asleep and you stand up and you're like, "Oh!" And it tingles, but it hurts. It started at my toes and went through my whole body. But I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. There was just warmth. And then I hear a rumbling sound, like a huge boulder being rolled away from a cave entrance. And light floods me. I can't see a thing, but I could tell there's light flushing in. And all I could do was instinctively move towards this light. And now I'm warm all over. And I slowly realized my hands and my feet are bound in grave clothes, and my face is wrapped in a headcloth. And then I heard that voice. It was the voice of love. It was the voice of miracles. It was that voice that had said, fill the jars with water. It was the voice of Jesus. Man, it was the voice of resurrection. And he said, unwrap him and let him go. Wow! Do you have any idea how that felt? That I was unbound, unchained, untied, and free. Jesus said, unbind him, untie him, unwrap him, let him go. And I can see now. And all these people gathered there. And my sister Mary weeping. And my sister Martha pointing at me saying, he stinketh! We really did talk like that in the Bible days. And Jesus grinning, just grinning that grin, that same grin that he always grinned back when he used to say, hey Lazarus, throw your fishing line over there. Yeah, that grin. So we made our way back to the house. We went back to the house where the rest of the friends and the rest of the family were there gathered, and they were waiting for my sisters to return from the graveside. And I walked up and I hear two of my saddened friends. And they're talking about me. And they were talking about how my life was an example of a life well lived. And boy, I got to tell you, it felt really nice to hear them talking so nice about me after I was dead. And I walk up, still grieving after 4 days, still saddened. And I walk up, it goes something like this. Hi, guys. Hey, Lazarus. We see dead people! Yeah, it's pretty funny. For a while after that, it got pretty crazy. Things really got pretty crazy because people from all over started coming just to look at me. Just to come and look at me. That's when I started doing that whole entrance thing, you know. Boo! I mean, I figure they're going to travel all that way just to come at old Lazarus. I might as well give them something to look at. Good times. But that's when things started really to get bad. The leading priest and the Pharisees, they made this public order that anyone seeing Jesus was to report it immediately so they could arrest him. It was 6 days before the Passover. 6 days before the Passover celebration was to begin, Jesus slipped back into town. Stayed at our house, of course, like he always does. And Mary took this perfume, real expensive stuff, and she pours it all over Jesus' feet. And she used her hair to wipe them. And the fragrance filled the whole house. It was beautiful. And every time I smell that perfume, I still go back to that moment. It was sheer love. It was sheer worship. It was a servanthood moment. It was just beautiful. And I go back every time I smell that. And then Judas Iscariot, you've heard of him, right? Judas said, that perfume should have been sold and the money given to the poor. Now, later on, there's a little controversy on whether Judas really wanted to give the money to the poor or if he wanted to keep it some for himself because maybe he was embezzling, but that's a whole other deal because right then, Jesus replied, shh, leave her alone. She did this to prepare me for burial. To prepare me for burial. Man, Jesus, what a buzzkill. I mean, normally, whatever Jesus says, you're hanging on every word and you're filled with joy and anticipation and peace. And Jesus says, she's preparing me for burial. She's preparing me for the grave. It's at that time the rumors began that the leading priest wanted to kill me too. Look it up. They wanted to kill me too. It was because of me that so many people had deserted them and believed in Jesus. Hey, I already died once, so I was not scared to die again. But I wasn't in any hurry either. So I decided to kind of lay low for a while, and that's when I became a funeral director. That's right. An undertaker. I figure who's better qualified to make sure things run smoothly during the loss of a loved one? I mean, I've been there, done that, right? I mean, come on. And right after that, that's when things got really, really, really bad. Jesus was betrayed. Judas Iscariot. He was arrested. He was completely innocent, and yet he was crucified. He was nailed to a cross. And just before it happened, He told us, if the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belong to it, but you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out of that world. I remember those words. And that's why I'm unashamed. Because He didn't stay in the grave. I am unashamed of the gospel. Gospel, that word means good news. Most specifically, I got to tell you, it means the good news about Jesus Christ. Jesus, Messiah. The good news is He did die on that cross for us, but that He rose again. Resurrection. A lot of people struggle with what they believe because there's so many mixed messages in the world. Things are coming here and there, and you want to believe a little of that and a little of this and take all this together and kind of make your own religion you want to live by. And then people don't help because they say, just follow your heart. That's what I always do. Or they say, just do what's good for you. Or you just feel things in your heart. And you're like, well, that just doesn't feel right. Or you think things, well, I just don't think it's that way. And so things get all mixed up, and a lot of people struggle with what they believe. But not me. See, Jesus changed my life. No, He did more than change my life. He gave me a new life. He gave me a new start. So you ask me, do I really believe in Jesus? Do I really believe in all this resurrection stuff? Look, I was dead, now I'm alive. I was dead, now I'm alive. Absolutely, I believe. I believe in the resurrection and that He's coming back again. Now, thinking back, the most life-giving moment of my life was when Jesus said, Lazarus, come out. See, He said my name. He said my name. And don't you understand? Don't you see? He had to say my name. If He didn't say my name, He just said, come out, every grave in the area would have opened up. Talk about mass hysteria, zombie apocalypse. This is Thriller now. Rule 22. When in doubt, know your way out. But Jesus called me by name to come out of this death and into this fully alive life. He called me by name to come out of this death-like existence into this fully alive life. And I guess I could have just stayed there. When He's called my name, I could have just stayed there. I could have been like some people and just said, I'm comfortable here. And if I come out, people are just going to expect things to be different. And that's the challenge. It really is. That's the challenge we all face. Jesus is calling each one of us by name to come out of this grave, out of this death-like existence, into this life, His life, this abundant life that He has for us. Jesus is calling each one of us by name into something bigger than ourselves. Some call this a movement. We just call ourselves a fellowship. Fellowship of the unashamed. A fellowship of used-to-be's. A used-to-be woman she used to be sick. A man who used to be a murderer. There are those who used to be blind, but now they see. There are those who used to be lost. There are those who used to be crippled under heavy burdens. And all of us, just like myself in a sense, used to be dead. So today, I want to leave you with this. Let the lost be found and the dead be raised. In the here and now, let love invade. Let this church live loud. Our God will say, we believe. We believe. And the gates of hell, they will not prevail. The power of God has torn the veil. Do you even know what that means? That means that He is now with us, fully present in this moment. Now we know your love, God, it will never fail. We believe. We believe. Thank you.